Hello. Sorry, I just woke up. My name is Jim Howard. I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. Today is March 27th, 2011. It's 9:42 a.m. I wanted to make this little video, and then I've got to head out to CVS Pharmacy and pick up a prescription, and I'm going to get me something to eat while I'm out, some kind of breakfast. I don't know, I'll eat at Arby's or someplace like that. Just recently, Republicans were jumping up and down with joy and celebrating Ronald Reagan's, can't remember whether was it his 100th birthday, if he had been alive. Whatever it was, they were overjoyed and jumping up and down and so happy. And as we saw with the last presidential election, Republicans rejected President Bush. I don't think they mentioned him at their convention. And it was Ronald Reagan. Just, everything was Ronald Reagan. Oh, glorious Ronald Reagan. Wonderful, their hero. And even Republicans are allowed to, even though they are the evil empire, even they are allowed to have a hero. So I didn't really blog about, I don't think I did. I might have, on a blog or two, posted about Reagan and his crimes. I mean, President Ronald Reagan was, he was a Republican president, so he couldn't be, you can't be a great president. How can you be a great president when you're stomping on the little man and taking care of the rich man? I don't know. I guess back in history, if you go back to English kings or whatever, there might have been some English kings that the little guy considered to be, great. That, the king took care of the princes and the dukes and the lords, and the serfs got scraps. But maybe some of them looked up to some of those kings. I don't know. So let's not forget that. Okay, now Ronald Reagan wasn't the worst. The worst president of the United States we ever had was President Bush II, President Bush Jr. Just about impossible for a Republican to be a great president. Of course, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, but I mean, that's so far back that who knows what the parties were really like. And if he was a pretty ambitious man, Abraham Lincoln. If he was a modern day politician or whatever, he might look around at the situation and say, "Oh, okay, let's see here. The Republican Party, I can slip right on in there." So, but of modern presidents, pick the best American presidents. None of them are Republican. They're all Democrats. So I got to remember now, of course, Ronald Reagan wasn't. He wasn't a Richard Nixon. He committed crimes like Richard Nixon, but Richard Nixon was a vicious bastard who had an enemies list and was going to use, ex-CIA people and use illegal means in order to make sure he was reelected and that the Democrats were screwed and fucked. I don't think Ronald Reagan would have done that, but Ronald Reagan had his agenda, and he wasn't going to abide by the laws, and because they didn't go along with his agenda. Congress had passed a law saying that no one will deal with Iran, and there'll be no selling of arms or anything to Iran, no dealings with them. And Ronald Reagan sold military supplies to Iran secretly, and of course denied. There was all kinds of denials. No, we're having no dealings with. We understand the law. Yes, before committees. No, there's no dealings with Iran. And then that money was taken. The illegal secret money was taken, and Congress had passed a law saying that there will be no interference in Nicaragua. We won't be involved in the conflict in Nicaragua. We won't be helping the Contras down there. It's against the law to do that. We will not do that. And of course, people from the Reagan administration, testified before Congress. No, we have nothing to do with Nicaragua. There's a law. We know. We obey the law. And Reagan took the secret money, used it to buy weapons and to rent airplanes and do all kinds of stuff, and to arm the Nicaragua Contras, and to send supplies to them, and to give them all kinds of assistance, illegal assistance. And some of those planes, and this we don't know for sure, I don't think, some people say for sure, the people who were being paid to take these supplies down and to do these various things, there are lots of reports. I'm not sure if they were confirmed that those planes that came back, had narcotics, illegal narcotics on it that ended up on the streets of America, being injected into the arms or sniffed up the nose of American youth. So Ronald Reagan did that, and then of course when it came out, he denied any knowledge of it. What? There was an office here. The people in the White House were doing that. Well, I had no knowledge of that. I have no knowledge. I'm an old man. I'm an old man. I don't know anything about this. So I mean, for those things alone, that's at the very basic fabric of our government, and that's what really was bad with Richard Nixon. Was, man, he was really, and just Richard Nixon was doing that. And by the way, Richard Nixon, there were good things during his administration that he did, but that doesn't excuse high crimes and misdemeanors. And with Reagan got by with these things. Other people took the, we did this, and the President of the United States knew nothing at all about it. We were next door in his office. We met in his office, and we were next door, and we were in the basement of the White House, and we did all these things, and the President knew nothing, and they took the blame for it. But that's so. Ronald Reagan was, for a Republican, he wasn't a bad president, except how do you justify when you have those things that he did? Do you get by with, he was a nice guy, and the economy was pretty good. In fact, he improved the economy. The previous president, Carter, a Democrat, the economy was all screwed up, and Reagan made the economy, better. So do you forgive those things? Now, what I wanted to talk about, I was going to leave this all alone. I wasn't going to bring up this stuff, although I guess maybe I kind of remember blogging about it a little bit. But I mean, the love affair with Reagan has been going on since it's been going on for a long time, but been going on since the Republican convention in 2010, 2008, we had the election. And they just, Ronald Reagan, a great fan. No. And I sort of kept quiet about it. And a little tiny, little event. Oh, one of the things that the Republicans just worship, it gives them an erection thinking about it. And it's that Ronald Reagan did away with the PATCO Air Traffic Controllers Union. that is probably the biggest thing that when he did that, he really hurt the labor union movement, and it sent a signal to businesses and corporations and everybody at the time that, hey, the government is cooperative and friendly to us screwing the workers and to destroying the unions. And the Republicans just loved him for it. Now, the PATCO, air traffic controllers, back at the time, they said they wanted, I don't know what they wanted. They wanted more money, I guess. And they made really, really good money. But working conditions were very stressful, are very stressful. And you do need a lot of training, and it's not just college training and then training through the academy, and then that you get hired in, and then you sit down and you start doing it. When you get hired in, you have to go through training for months, if not years, of training. And when you're working an area, you have to be trained and certified on that area that you're working. That takes months, if not, There's a lot to it, and the stress is really, so. But at the time, I thought, no. I said, this is not good. They shouldn't be going on strike because the American people are not going to understand somebody making the kind of money that they're making and then going on strike. And, of course, they went on strike. And, of course, President Reagan fired them all. And that was the end of the PATCO union. And Reagan was loved and is still loved and worshipped and adored because of it. Now, I was going to kind of keep quiet about it, but a little tiny thing. This air traffic controller, which is funny, not funny, but this air traffic controller at Reagan National Airport, the airport I think it was the George Washington Airport, which to me, the first president of the United States and an airport in Washington, D.C., I mean, it should have been the George Washington Airport. Republicans got it named the Reagan National Airport. Cost a lot of money, by the way, to change all the signs on the highways and roads and whatever, but Republicans don't care if it's for something like that, whether they're spending a lot of unnecessary money. But it's kind of funny, this was the airport, and an air traffic controller working the midnight shift fell asleep. And he didn't hear a couple aircraft call that needed, landing instructions. And so he's been suspended, and I'm sure he'll probably be fired unless he can, he was sleeping and he admits it, that he fell asleep, and he'd worked 4 graveyard or midnight shifts, and I'm not sure if that's his excuse. Now, I worked hospital security for 30 years, and I don't know how many of those years I worked the graveyard shift, the midnight shift. I know at one hospital I worked at, a small hospital, I worked there 11 years, and I worked the midnight shift all 11 years. And I worked at one hospital, another fairly small hospital. I worked there a year exactly, and that was midnight shift. I don't know, I haven't added it up. I have worked a midnight shift, and I know what it's like. I sympathize with the guy, but he's guilty. I mean, there's certain things that happen, and if it happens and you get caught, that's it. I mean, you're guilty. I was, for many, many years, for the hospital, I was a CPR instructor. And one time there was a nurse who needed to be certified, a ER nurse, emergency room nurse, who needed to be certified in CPR, and she needed to be certified that day because there was a policy had just come out that you couldn't work after today. Actually, it went halfway through a shift. So she was an ER nurse, and she was certified in advanced cardiac life support. And I had seen her do CPR many times. And I certified her without using the mannequin and issued her her card. Now, another nurse who had been reported for improper sexual conduct by the wives, two wives that called into the hospital, one the wife of a police officer, one the wife of a paramedic, and complained about her to administration. The head ER doctor had reported her to administration, and administration slapped her hand, and she denied everything, and she was convinced that security, that I had reported her, and I hadn't. And so when she found out that I had certified a nurse in CPR, she was a CPR instructor also, by the way, and when she found out I had certified this nurse in CPR, she reported me. I said yes. When my supervisor came out, said, "Did you certify somebody without, following the proper procedures and not using a mannequin?" I said, "Yes, I did." I didn't say, "Here's the reason." I said, "Yes, I did." I was suspended for 3 days without pay. My CPR certification was taken away. It went into my permanent file that I had falsified hospital documents, which stayed in my personnel file forever. Some things leave your file, but something like that stays in your file. By the way, this nurse who reported me, I had seen her before. We'd be doing CPR at the same time at that small hospital. I volunteered at the big hospital and did CPR down there. I'm not sure if she did or not. She might have. But at the small hospital, before I'd be doing CPR at a station, she'd be doing CPR at a station, and I had seen, an ICU nurse come out. I just worked 12 hours, man. I'm really, really tired. I worked this midnight shift, and I can't really stay awake. And I've seen this nurse who reported me say, "That's okay. I'll mark you down for this because I know you can do it. Goodbye." Now, when I got reported, did I say, "Oh, well, she did," No, I just said, "Yes, I did it," So, when something happens, you got to take the blame and you got to take the consequences. Now, this is at 17 minutes, man, and I wanted to talk about I guess I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and do it, and I don't blame you if you bail out on me, because I'm eventually getting to the point, believe me. I'm heading that direction. Okay, this air traffic controller sleeping on duty at the Reagan National Airport. Whose fault? Okay, I've already said, it's his fault. But who else is to blame for this? Can you think of anybody? Ronald Reagan. Now, Ronald Reagan's been dead for a long time. How could it be Ronald Reagan's fault? When the air traffic controllers went on strike, PATCO union, he fired them all. The air traffic control system was thrown into chaos, into an emergency situation, and it was extremely dangerous to the American flying public that all these air traffic controllers were fired and not on the job. Reagan and his administration changed rules, allowed people to become air traffic controllers that they wouldn't have allowed before. They allowed them to bypass steps. Training was just hire somebody in and put them on this station and give them minimal, everything was just, Let me jump, by the way. Republicans love him because he fired union members. He fired PATCO, destroyed the union. The air traffic controllers, the new ones who got hired in, started up 3 unions for the air traffic controllers. 2 smaller ones and a larger one, the biggest one, which was more powerful than PATCO. He didn't actually accomplish anything. President Reagan didn't accomplish anything except to screw up the air traffic control system of the United States of America to the current day. tremendous problems were created because of firing of these experienced people. Kind of hard to explain why to the layman. By the way, let me say, I worked, graveyard shifts for years. I think I already said that. Let me also say, I worked security at 2 air traffic control towers at airports. I worked with air traffic controllers. And they told me how wonderful their union was, not PATCO, because that was in the past. They told me how great their union was, how powerful it was. And I worked on the midnight shift, by the way, when I worked at these air traffic control towers, 2 different ones. So these, what did Reagan accomplish other than destroying or screwing up and putting us all at risk? For what reason, I don't know, except, well, I guess it was great for him and for his legacy with Republicans, because, man, they do worship him. But he sure didn't do anything good for the United States. I guess the corporations and everybody love him, should love him too, because he gave them the signal: you can screw with unions and with the working man. And the President of the United States has done it, and hey, go ahead and do it. So, how could he be to blame? We have to understand, they had to bring in people, they had to train people, and then also, some of the blame, 20% of the blame, 25% of the blame goes to President Bush too. Because when all these people had to be hired in, and shortcuts were taken, and we don't have time to go into all that. But when all these new people were hired in, they knew right away at that time, okay, we're going to have a problem in the future, because all these people were hired in at the same time, and they're all going to come up for retirement at the same time. And so we've got to be prepared for when this happens, and it's going to be a problem. All these people who got hired in and who weren't up to the skill, things were bypassed, their training was bypassed, but they gained experience, and but still there's deficiencies there, because when you don't get trained the proper through the system, the way they've been set up and designed, so you got these people, and okay, there's a problem. These people are going to be retiring. We got to start bringing in people. We can't just have these people say, okay, I'm retirement age, I'm walking out the door, and then we got all these new people that come in. We want people to come in and be here a while, some people, and they're getting the training and passed information on from these people, and then we got more people, and then the old people are gone, and then we're not. But we had in office President Bush, and President Bush is informed, and everybody knows about this problem, known about it since Ronald Reagan fired everybody. There was going to be a problem down the road. They didn't know who was going to be president, but they knew there was going to be a problem. And so President Bush is the President of the United States, and it's brought up, okay, hey, we got a problem. Remember Reagan, and he fired all these people? Well, all these people now, they're going to be retiring, and we're going to be screwed again. The system was never 100%, but it's 75%, and there hasn't been a big plane crash that we can, So Reagan's president, and Reagan says, but I don't want to hire these people in, because they've got this union, air traffic control unit, and it's more powerful than PATCO, and if I hire these people, new people in, they all belong to this union, and I don't want to do it. And then people are saying, but we got to get these, we got to bring in, these people are going to be leaving, they're going to be retiring, mandatory retirement, they're leaving. We got to bring people. No, not doing it. And so years are going, Bush is president, years are going by, and the air traffic control, please, we got to get these people in and get them trained. We don't want this situation of they walk out. I mean, they don't quit, they retire. Mandatory retirement. They leave, and we don't have any trained people to train the new people. We got to bring them in. The union is saying, hey, we need to, we got supervisors. This guy, by the way, who fell asleep apparently was a supervisor. And supervisors probably should not be working. My experience, a little bit of experience with a situation like that is, if somebody, a lot of times, if he's a supervisor in a position like that, if he's a supervisor, probably he isn't good at doing, the air traffic control. It's like, hey, this guy's going to screw up. Let's make him a supervisor. He can go over and he can do our timesheets, and he can do our check these things, and let's make him so. I don't know if that's the case in this. This guy might have been a fantastic air traffic controller. I doubt it. So they're telling Reagan, and the union is saying, hey, we got to get these people, please. It's dangerous to the American public, and we can't have all these experienced people leave and hire in brand new people. You don't just walk out the door and leave the desk, and the control console, and then have somebody come and sit down. Oh, okay, well, let's see. It looks like if I push this button here, we need. So Reagan, nope, not doing it, not hiring him in. This is going on for years, and Reagan doesn't want to hire these new people in and have them go into the union. So the union makes some concessions. Instead of, when new people are hired in, instead of them making, while they're in the 3-week academy, or however, 3 months or whatever, however long it was, I don't know. While they're in the training, they always got air traffic control pay. And Reagan says, no, I want them to be paid minimum wage. When they graduate, then they can get, but they can't get the full air traffic control pay. It has to be reduced, not as much. Finally, the union agrees to, okay. I knew a guy who had just, you were right at the wrong time. I knew a guy who went to college and took a college course in air traffic control. All the courses were designed, college courses, but they're all designed to that. He graduated with a degree, 2-year degree in air traffic control, and he applied to be hired as an air traffic controller, and he was accepted. And right at that time, that was the first class. It was announced that, okay, by the way, the pay is not going to be, I don't know what it was, $20 an hour. It's going to be $10 an hour or something, whatever it was. And by the way, when you go in to the thing, your pay won't be this amount. It won't be this amount. It's going to be this amount. And here are the following things, because, and this guy said, fuck it. I'm not going to go for 3 months to air traffic control school. And also they, at the air traffic, before they paid you per diem, they paid you so much, $20 a day or something, or to pay for your motel room or something here, because the school is in, I don't know, Ardmore, Oklahoma, or someplace out in the wilderness. There's nothing there. You're not going to be able to go there and go to school and work part-time at the 7-Eleven store to make the money to pay for your, And so this guy just said, this guy was an experienced, smart person, and he said, fuck it. And he went to work someplace else. So, did I cover my points? I don't think I can get it across to you. Let me use another example. Something to try to explain to you the situation. because it's not easy to understand it. Okay, let's take this. Ronald Reagan is not President of the United States. Let's make him CEO of a hospital, the head of a hospital. And this hospital sets up a heart transplant. They want to do heart transplants. And so they start doing what's necessary to do heart transplants. And doctors are signed up for it or whatever. Now, we know if you need to have a heart transplant, you don't want to be the first patient or the 10th patient or the 20th or the 25th. The more heart transplants, and it's probably that way with a lot of procedures, that the hospital does, the better they get. The more these staff members learn, the more everything works. So let's say that the hospital sets up this, and after 10 years, they have one terrific heart transplant unit. If you need a heart transplant unit, that's the place to go. Okay, now the doctors are going to be the air traffic controllers. And the CEO of the hospital is Ronald Reagan. He's the, Okay, the doctors complain. They say, when we get called in these emergency situations, if we come in on the day shift, we have to park on the 5th level of the parking garage, and then we got to go over here and we got to take the elevator, and then we got to go and then we get to the emergency surgery. We want to park in the fire lane, right in front of the hospital. CEO says, no, you can't park there. The doctors say, when we work the second shift and we come in, we have to park on the such and such level of the parking garage, and we got to come in such and such a way. We want to park in no, you can't park it. Ronald Reagan, the CEO, you cannot park in a fire lane. Nobody can park in a fire lane. Rules are rules. You can't park in a fucking fire lane. The doctors say, when we get called in on the midnight shift, there's only one door open to the hospital. We have to park way over here. We have to come to the ER entrance. We have to show security who we are if they don't know. Then we have to go all the way down here. We got to go down this hallway, and we take the elevator and we go up to this heart unit, and then we go over into there, and then we take the elevator and the heart unit to go. And we want to park in the emergency room on midnight shift, right in the emergency room lanes there, parking spots out in the emergency room where the patients park. CEO, you can't park there. Doctors say, fuck you. We are heart transplant doctors. This hospital is making tons of money off us. We are parking where we want to park, and we're doing it, and fuck you. So in this scenario, what happens? Ronald Reagan, the CEO of the hospital, says, you're all fired. And they say, okay. And they leave. He says, by the way, I'm not rehiring any of you, which is what happened with PATCO also. Because when PATCO, some of those guys came back and said, oh, please, Mr. Reagan. Okay. Nope. Fuck you. Same situation here. One or two of the doctors will come back. Okay, I'm trained all my life, to do heart transplant surgery. Everything, fuck you. So the heart transplant program continues. They have a few inexperienced doctors. So they start over. They get some more doctors, and the inexperienced doctors who didn't get fired, they train these new doctors that come in, and the program starts over. 10, 15 years later, they have a good heart transplant. They're back to where they were. We don't know how many people died, who had heart transplants, but they're back to where they were. This is the situation. This is the situation. So I didn't really cover this, but let me cover this. Working midnight shift is extremely difficult. It's scientifically been proven. If you work the midnight shift, you're going to get sick. You're going to get sicker. If you do get sick, you're going to be sicker than you would have been sick if you'd been working a day shift and sleeping at nights. You're going to die younger. You're going to have more marital problems. I have, in my 30 years of doing hospital security, I saw ER nurses, excellent ER nurses, asleep, who'd fallen asleep in the emergency room. I've seen ICU nurses falling asleep in, the ICU unit because of on the midnight shift. Other employees on working midnight shift, I made rounds and found them asleep. Not at the hospital, but I know of police officers who went and parked their patrol cars and park it down a lane or something, or inside a park entrance or something, and set the radar up and have gone to sleep on the midnight shift with the radar going. So if a car came down that road, which normally wouldn't be coming down that road, the radar would go off and wake them up, because I drove down that road and woke some of them up. I worked at a hospital where, Jewish hospital, we had a threat. Actually, I was on duty and received, on the midnight shift, I received the threat. A guy called in and said he can blow the hospital up, blah, 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 and I wrote it up, and then I was only working 2 days a week on midnight shift at that hospital. It was extra. And I was off for a week. That was my second day, so I was off for a week. Well, when administration saw the report that I wrote, what this guy said, they put security on 12-hour shifts to give extra coverage, and they decided to hire a off-duty police officer, one for each shift, for a week's time, just to have somebody extra on hand. When I came back a week later, the guy said, "Oh man, we've been on 12-hour shifts. We're really tired." And then they told me that the police officer who was working the midnight shift there at the hospital came in. He was an off-duty police officer, and so he came in with a pillow, a red pillow, and parked his car in the parking garage where there were no cars, up on a level up there. And he went to sleep. And then in the morning, 8 hours later, as employees started to come in, they started filling up the parking garage. When they got up to his level, it woke him up, and then he put his pillow away and went off duty. So sleeping at midnight, but I don't excuse it. I'm just saying that it happens, and that's just what I did with I never fell asleep. Well, there's times I'd be sitting, in a chair or whatever, and I'd be doing this and whatever. And I've gotten up and slapped water on my face and done everything to stay, but I've never gone and sat down and fallen asleep, or laid down and fallen asleep on the midnight shift. But man, I came close to falling asleep driving the Cushman scooter on the 6th level of a parking garage heading towards the wall. And then, I'd wake up, oh man, I'm so tired. I'd park the Cushman and get out and walk, and I'd fall asleep, for a second or two I'd be actually falling asleep. It is rough. And let me tell you now, it's especially rough if your management, if they do something, rotating shifts, oh man, forget it. If they rotate your shifts, if you work days sometimes and then you go to the second shift or whatever, or if they call you in and if they say, we need you to work midnights, you normally work days, but you're working midnights, it's hell. You don't know how bad it is. I do. I'm an expert in this area. What I did, but a lot of people, it's hard to do. Also, let me tell you too what hospitals did, and other places do. I'm working a midnight shift, and every 2 or 3 months, the hospital director of security would say, mandatory departmental meeting, 2 p.m. That's great. 2 p.m. for the day shift. The day shift's there. 2 p.m., that's great for the second shift. The second shift comes in at 2 p.m. Normally. Now, sometimes, if you're off, you'd have to. But if you're a midnight shift employee, and you got to come in at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, That's like a day shift person having to come in for a meeting at 2 a.m. in the morning. I would tell this to the directors of security, you know, why don't you hold some of these meetings at 2 a.m. in the morning? And they'd look at me like, are you crazy? And I'd try to explain to them, but it never sunk in. That, say you're a day shift person, and say they did say, okay, well, we'll have a mandatory departmental meeting at 2 a.m. Say you're a day shift person, and you normally go to bed, you're a, kind of a square dude or whatever. You go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, every night. 10 o'clock at night, I got to be at work at 6 a.m. in the morning. 10 o'clock at night, I'm going to bed. And you sleep till 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and you go to work. Okay, if you're a day shift person, if they held a meeting, a departmental meeting, at which they never would, at 2 a.m. in the morning, you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. You got to wake up at 12:30, 1 o'clock, maybe if you're close. Got to wake up at 12. After 2 hours or so, you got to wake up, get dressed, drive to work, have the 2-hour meeting, 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., and then what do? You go back home, you get back home at 5 a.m. It's time to wake up at 5 a.m. to go back to work. That's the situation that the people and that happens quite often, that things, you're working midnight shift, you have to have some type of training, you have to have some type of a meeting, you've got to attend such and such, or things come up. You've got a family, you have a sick child, you've got, something comes up, somebody's coming to do work at your house or something, repair something, and you can't sleep, they're tearing the walls down, or who knows what. Things happen when you work midnight shift. And they don't take those things into consideration. What I did for years, and it's not easy to do, and of course, I wasn't married at the time, I was divorced. What I did is, I kept the same schedule that I had. On my days off, I stayed up all night long, cleaned the house, tried to find something to do. And then in the morning, when I would be getting home from work, if I'd have been working the night before, then I went to bed and I slept all day. And then I woke up and I kept the same schedule. So when I went into work, everybody else, a lot of people who had normal lives and had to work midnight shift, they were, oh man, I'm so tired, today was so bad, and at least somebody was alert at the hospital that I worked at. So I feel sorry for the air traffic controller who, I don't know what his situation was. I don't know, but he's screwed, I think. But believe me, I mean, if you're a young person or whatever and you stayed up a couple nights late, studying, cramming for a test or something, rather, you're 16, 17, 18 years old and you stayed up late, a few nights, you don't know what it's like. That's different when you work the midnight shift. When you work a shift, when you have to get dressed and go to work and do, drive there and do duties, and do it every, it's not something you voluntarily you're doing, and you're not going to be able to sleep the next, you may not be able to sleep, may have difficulty sleeping. So that's my 2 cents on the air traffic controller situation, on the air traffic controller that was sleeping, and on Ronald Reagan, and on heart transplant surgery. That's my opinion. I know, I got a fucking opinion on everything, don't I? Well, what can I say? Thank you very much for watching. That's what I can say. Appreciate it. I wonder if you stayed with me. If you stayed to the end of this, do a thumbs up. If you stayed to the end of this video, do a thumbs up. Let me see how many of you stayed to the end of this video. A thumbs up will tell me. I don't think you could have made it 45 minutes. If you did, you're a saint. God bless you.